Okay, so summing up the NHS here, overall it is free. You have the yearly payment that goes from working citizens to the system, but and they do balance care with cost. The system is able to negotiate deals if they think. Oh, I keep doing that. If they think they're going to need 20,000 knee replacements, then they can, buy things in bulk, and so they can try to reduce costs doing that. Because they're a large system, then they can reduce cost in some ways like that. But sometimes it does, uh, produce wait times and things like that, which I'll mention in just a second. But and they do have to charge for some prescriptions sometimes, or charge a small amount. So that began in 1951, and so that's a cost balance kind of choice, much like your insurance does today. You'll have to pay for some prescriptions and some you won't, or you'll have to pay a reduced amount, or there's always these calculations to balance cost with care. That's the issue, is cost balance. Cost versus care is always the two issues. But overall, doctor visits, if you visit your GP, it won't cost you anything if you are paying into the system, or if you are getting x-rays or a surgery. All those are covered within the system. As I mentioned, there is private medical care used by a small percentage of the population. But overall, people are generally happy with their system. There's no debate on should we keep the system. That's never even a question that comes up in any real form in the UK. The debate is always, how do we save on costs? Do we need to increase spending on it? Do we need to hire more doctors to better care, or do we need to have 15 more ambulances built for the north of England to better or improve wait times on ambulances? Those are the kind of debates that happen, but it's not a actual debate on the merits of the system. Everybody is 99+% on board with the fact that they should have it. During there was a period, and we'll talk about it later in coming weeks, during the Thatcher years, the Conservatives were in charge of the government. There was some push to rein in spending, but there's a lot of rhetoric out there on rolling back the state encroachment into life in general, but there's never any real change. Like the extent with which the system operates never really changed that much. There's just there might be some more debate on the cost of it, and needs to rein in costs, but that's about the extent of it for the vast majority. The biggest knock, I guess you'd say, the detractor point that people are able to point to with the NHS tends to be wait times. Here in the U.S., depending on your healthcare situation, the wait times can be rather short. Not in the current situation with the lockdown and everything, but in the normal operating times, they can be immediate. Nearly with the NHS, it tends to be about a week for non-emergency medical care. Varies by location because the number of people in an area depends on how many people are sick at any one time. But generally, there's just too few general practitioner doctors to meet the increasing demand for medical care, and so that's going to lead to expanded wait time. Elective surgeries tend to be a bit slower, about 11 months usually for something like a hip replacement or a knee replacement. That's typical. Again, it can vary, but that is typical. In cancer treatment, the speed with which they can get a person into the system can be slower, sometimes up to 60 days, but they do constantly work towards reducing those wait times, but that is a factor in a system that takes care of everyone equally. That is sort of a nature of the beast, if you want to call it this, because it is quite a beast of a system. But it does have its pros and cons here. I wanted to give you an example here. A couple of videos that you'll see below here. One is, this is from 2020. So this is Johnson, who's the current prime minister, and Corbyn, who was the leader of the Labour Party during this last election, like right at the end of 2019, beginning of 2020. He's since stepped down, being blamed for the Labour Party losing pretty heavily in that election. But this is just a good, very, very recent example of the level of debate that people have over the NHS. And so this is during Prime Minister's questions, which is when people can ask the Prime Minister questions during a session of Parliament. I believe it happens weekly. You can check that out. It's like 2 minutes long. It's an edited version. You can see kind of the heatedness that happens around the NHS. And then this was a little bit longer piece, just how the NHS is responding to the coronavirus challenge. I thought that'd be worth you getting to see that. And then to wrap up your sort of exploration here of the NHS, one is, this is, previously in the semester I showed you some clips from the Olympic ceremony held in London. And one of the segments that they had, it's relatively short, but this is cued to the little segment that they had with NHS, just showing off to the world, because the British people generally are quite proud of their national healthcare system, and it's a big part of life there. And so they made sure that they mentioned it there during the Olympic ceremony. And then sort of your time spent, since what I'm talking about here is relatively short, I'd like you to spend a little bit of time here on the Beveridge Report, 75 years on, slaying the 5 giants, past, present, future. So this is from the Royal Statistical Society. Much like I mentioned the Royal Society previously, this is a group called the Royal Statistical Society. Beveridge himself was president of this group from 41 to 43. And, excuse me, since then, they've had annual talk given. It's the Beveridge Lecture, I think it's called. And this one, on the 75th anniversary of the Beveridge Report, they had expert come in and talk about the report and how things have gone since and how things have changed since. And so it's not particularly exciting to watch because it's a single person and there's a PowerPoint behind them, but they don't really change the PowerPoint. So you can just, it's one of those things you could just turn on and listen to it. But there's some good information there. So I'll leave that there for you as well. So be on the lookout for exam 2 here shortly, and we'll see you next time. So I appreciate you being here. Have a good one.